Okay, I think this thing is on. It's still dark. So hopefully the sound is coming through. I'm about 10 minutes before the official start of the book reading for Going Alone. So I'm going to be reading from the chapter titled The Cast. Let me use this time to share out the link. Put this right there. That's charging. Hello, Spoozy. Hi, Ron. How you doing? So I'm a little bit early, just getting things set up. And as you can see, it's a little bit dark too. But the sun's coming out, so it should be getting better as the moments go by. A little bright light there, but that's okay. Okay, let me bring this up on the computer and share this out. Hey, Ron, can you hear me all right? How's the sound, so to speak? Bear with me, please. Just a moment. And let's see. It's 6:23, so I start this at 6:30. So I've got 7 minutes to get it just so. Let me go ahead and share it out. There we go. That's a terrible thumbnail. Oh, hey, there I am. Turn the sound down. Good. And share. I will share this to Facebook. Oh, there's somebody else. Hi, I'm live and what? I'm live and setting up for this month's book reading from Going Alone. This time we'll read from the chapter titled The Cast and learn a little about the places and characters which make up the story of Going Alone. I'm live and setting up for this month's book reading from Going Alone. This time, we'll read from the chapter titled The Cast and learn a little bit about our hero, said in the best 1930s voice, and learn a little bit about the places and characters which make up the story of Going Alone. That works. Post to Facebook. I will also post it. Can you do this? You can. You can post it to different feeds and the like. I'll also post that to the Going Alone page. Look at that. Yeah, 5 minutes left. Ron, I haven't made a book reading since my last trip to Siberia. Last trip was really productive, although that was more than a month ago, for reasons I'll mention in just a second. And then Going Alone, The Good Life book, yeah. Boink. And I'm almost done sharing. Share it out to the Twitter. Nope, too many spaces. There we go. And there's tweet. And bingo. I think I'm just about ready. I've still got 4 minutes to go. So I can chat for a second. Well, let me bring up the little chat thing. Although, do I want to do that? Yeah, I guess the illumination from the monitor helps. Now, there's a way to break this up. New super stickers is now enabled. With super stickers, people can buy fun, colorful images to express themselves. And hold on just a second. Yeah, I don't know that I'm interested in super stickers. What I want to do is I want to pop out the chat. That's what I want to do. And I'll make the video go away. I don't want to see myself because I just get confused. Oh, good. Now I can see the comments. So Spoozy asked me, how was your last trip to Siberia? Productive? Very productive indeed. Got a lot done, including a reading of from Marcus Aurelius's meditations. I read the entire book 1 and recorded it, and I just uploaded it to YouTube last night. That took me 4 attempts under the bridge. I just couldn't pronounce those names. Also, the heat really had me out there. That 110-degree heat really got to me. If you see the video, you'll see on my face that I was not doing well. Another question here. What made you go back to Facebook and your Bible study? Oh, real simple question. I had decided to, the pre-story to that is that I had decided to stop posting on Facebook yet again. I've done this several times in the past. And the reason I had done that was I had decided it wasn't a good use of my time. It wasn't a good use of my time. But what I discovered was that what is a good use of my time is writing and thinking, reading, thinking, and writing. Those are a really good use of my time, in addition to spending time with my family, of course. What I find is when I read and I write, and then I share it on Facebook, and if I know I'm going to share it, even if nobody watches it and reads it, it has the effect of making me do a better job. And I found as soon as I dropped off the sharing, my Bible study in particular was getting a little more superficial, a little less in depth. I wasn't taking it quite as seriously, and I realized, so my creativity, it helps to have the catalyst of an audience, even if that's a faint audience, even if it's an imaginary audience. At least the very act of posting seems to make me do a better job. It's like, if you're going to, make a little drawing and then crumple it up and throw it in the drawer or in the trash, versus you're going to make a little drawing, you're going to pin it up on the bulletin board. You do a better job with the latter, I think. So that's what brought me back. Oh, you saw the video. Did you see the one about Marcus Aurelius? That was an interesting experiment. I'm not so sure if I'm going to do that again. I enjoyed it greatly. I was going to read it anyway under the bridge. That was my plan. I usually bring, sometimes, not always, but I shouldn't say usually. I usually do bring something, but I don't always actually read it. And then I thought, for the same reason, if I turn the camera on, maybe I'll do a better job of reading. So Sayan Yam says, I do believe in a miracle. The fact that anything exists at all. Beyond that, religious ideals of magic seem ludicrous. Do you think you'll ever study the Quran? As for the miracle of anything existing at all, what would we compare that to identify existence or non-existence as not miraculous, I wonder? Yes, I do indeed plan to study the Quran after I'm done with the Bible, and which will probably mean never, because at the rate I'm going, at about 1 chapter a month, I'll be dead long before I even reach the New Testament. So it's on my list. I just started with the Bible because that's what a believer sent me to read. Yes, I read a little bit of the Quran. You mentioned that it's similar to the Jewish Bible. I mean, I have read a little bit of it, but not a deep dive. And there we go. It's 6:31, so let's get started. Welcome. My name is Kurt Bell, and I am the author of a book called Going Alone. Let's see if I can... No, there's still... Hey, that's okay. I think I'm going to do that. I'm the author of a book called Going Alone. Its subtitle is A Life of Courage, Joy, and Independence. And the meaning of the subtitle basically is it's an attempt to write down what I've been telling people over and over for more than a decade now, since having my YouTube channel about Japan and adventure. And people would write to me and ask me, how did you do it? How did you wind up in Japan with a family and a job and adventure and all this stuff? And I can't seem to quite do it myself. They would say to me, right? I'm like, I haven't finished school. I don't know what work I would do. My mom says that would be crazy to go. What would I need to buy a house. What about the gal or guy that I want to marry? Lots of reasons not to do anything. And they would ask me how to do it. So I would write back to them, my suggestions about, how to plan for a great life adventure, what I came to call a great life adventure, and also about the risks of not doing that. And what I found was two things. Well, one, that there were my vast minority of people would ever do that. Most people would not do anything. They would just continue with the excuses about why they could not. But what I found was that there was a theme. I was saying the same thing over and over the course of many years to many people, the same thing. I would get these kind of queries about once every month or two. So I decided to heck with it. Well, instead of saying it over and over again, I started collecting it into canned responses. I would, actually write up little bits, and I would copy and paste it and kind of change it and share it with people. That endeavor eventually grew into this, which is Going Alone, which is basically a guide to a life of courage, joy, and independence. How, if I was to prescribe to someone who asked, how can I too, live a life of adventure, and have a family, and have a career, and try to be a good human being all at once. This is the instruction manual that I wrote for that. It's not quite complete. There's a second part to it, which is going to be the follow-up book called The Good Life. And there's a chapter in here called The Good Life, which explains the 30 objectives and principles that I developed to be the guide for the life that I think is a worthwhile life to live. And so that second book will flesh that out. And I'm about 40% of the way through that book, working hard at it. And it's coming along. It's going to be a lot of editing, though. Oh, my God. So I do this every month. I had this little gathering here at this Irvine Marriott, the Marriott here at Irvine, just across the street from where I live, sometimes inside, sometimes outside like I'm doing now, to read a little bit from the book. Hello, Aaron. Good morning to you. I'm here with my dog, so if you hear him bark, because the valets tend to run back and forth from the parking lot to from the front of the motel. I got my Starbucks. I'll drink a little bit once in a while, but let's get into it. I usually try to do this for less than an hour. 45 minutes would be good. 30 minutes would be fine too. A lot of my endeavors now on video, I'm trying to keep under 30 minutes. Today I'm going to read it from the chapter called The Cast, which I wrote after a suggestion from a friend who had read the book. And she mentioned to me that she kept referring back deep into the book. As she read through the book, she kept referring back, so what's this great indifference thing? What was that? What is the definition of that, right? And what's this thing? The watcher, or something like the edge of deep water. What do these things mean, Kurt? And I had the meaning, the definitions kind of scattered throughout. She suggested that I make a glossary. I'd made a glossary, but the glossary became, and that took me about 4 months to build that glossary, because you would actually take each of these concepts, list them out, and then write up a summary paragraph of each one. And it actually grew so extensive that it became a chapter in its own right, that I moved up to the front of the book. You can see it's up early, so that I can explain these concepts and these ideas early on. So I'm going to read from that right now. I'm not sure how far I'll get. We'll see as we go. And hello, I guess I just saw Yellowstone. Was that your name? Said good morning. Good morning to you. Where can I get the best light? Here we go. Me. When I was in college doing a drama class, the teacher taught me to go mommy moo me mo to work up the speaking voice. The cast. Characters, places, and concepts within my book. Let's begin with an introduction to the places and characters which play a role in my story of Going Alone. Some of these will figure notably in the book, while others are only mentioned briefly or not at all, or may only appear elsewhere, such as in my other writings or within the many videos I've made and shared about the deep wilderness settings which I've explored in Japan and America. Each of these places and characters are important to me for their use as landmarks, symbols, or analogy to the ideas I wish to convey. I'm going to go over here. I don't know, I go off the wall. Not so much light though. And as we proceed through this book, I'd like you to imagine 4 separate regions where these places and characters exist as elements of the story I want to tell. So I do these readings and I interject. So I pause and talk about things. I do other book readings where I don't do that. I just read right on through. 4 regions. This is important. And I tried to superimpose this idea upon the idea of the book itself. Because the idea of the book, one of the key ideas is the idea of the great indifference and the discovery of the great indifference by going alone into deep wilderness settings, but not just any deep wilderness settings. It's got to be a desert. It's got to be someplace like this. I deliberately chose this satellite view of the desert where I hike as the cover for the book, because this is the actual place where I do my hiking. It's really up in this area up here. If I've ever sent you a rock, it came from up here in this area. So what I'm going to describe now describes four layers, so to speak, of depth. But it's not just exploring in the desert, it's layers that we go through in life through discovery that reveal the great indifference and the great emptiness, which is the problem that the book proposes. This book proposes the problem of the emptiness. The Good Life, the book that's coming, enumerates and describes in great detail the solution that I came up with to that problem, if I dare say so myself. Oh, nice timing. Thank you. Here we go. The first region is this civilization we enjoy and share, even if you and I are separated now by vast space and time, and which is the common bond between my writing these words and your reading of them. I don't think I need to speak much of this civil place and circumstance between us, given the fact that it is our common human heritage, even if I am from California and you're from Istanbul. This shared resource of human connection is something we both know, enjoy, and may sometimes struggle to find and maintain a place within. It is our civilization and our community and our people and our home. This is the place from which we will start. It's the setting out point for this adventure of going alone. Don't lose sight of it. Never forget what it is, or how important this grounding will always be to the well-lived life, to the social life, to the good life. So the first layer, the first level, is all of this. All this stuff around me right here. My dog is quite... What are you looking at there? It looks like he hears something over there and he wants to bark. So it's all of this. And this is key. This is what makes us social animals, social beings. And without this, we become something quite different. I think we've all seen folks that have become that. I was in danger of becoming that. There was a key moment in my life when I was 24 that I almost went down that route. And I can't imagine what I would have become if I had stayed on that route. Fortunately, I had a realization that the connection with my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, was far more important than I could imagine. I didn't really understand it then. It took decades before I realized just what that was. But at the time I knew that because I was leaving her, I was heading off into the wilderness. I was heading off into a great life adventure that would not have included her. And I turned around, and I had a lot of invested. I invested my everything after college into a vehicle and equipment and the like, and I made it about 1 week away from her. And she was preparing to go back to Japan. I made it about 1 week away from her into the world before I realized, literally into the desert, not far, about 60 miles from where I currently adventure. And I remember the night, and I've talked about this before, I remember the night that it happened to me, that I realized that I was about to let loose the tether. I didn't quite get it at the time, but I knew this was not the right way to go, that I would become lost. And I turned around the next morning, and I drove all the way back to our college town where Yumiko and I had met and had our early life together, a dating life. And I resolved then that I would spend my life with this woman, and which I have done. And I would also find ways to then come back and venture into that wild, into these places, from the circumstance of a stable family life. And that would be my grounding. The ghost says, sometimes you need to lose yourself to find yourself. Yeah. So that's that first level that I'm referring to in this section right here. All of this. And it's a great danger to venture away too far from this without any tether back. I refer elsewhere in the book to a 100-mile thread of silk connecting me with the world this world when I'm out there in the desert. It's a scary thought to imagine that snapping. And it's also something that happens with age. It's less likely to happen. I think I'm safe from that now. I think the only thing that can get me now in the desert is death itself. I don't think I can become lost out there anymore. Even if I do become lost, even if I do die out there, I can't become lost anymore, because I have too much invested in all of this. That this is me. It's funny because yesterday's blog post was regarding that, becoming the person that you are. And at almost age 56, I am the person that I have lived to be, and I cannot change that. And it happens to be the person that I'm glad, this the person that I desired, I wanted to set out to be, along with all the bonus, which is the adventure, along with all the bonus stuff of the social man, the family man, the father, the worker, all the guy that pays his taxes, and all of that. So it's a package that has elements of all the stuff. But boy, if I hadn't made that choice early on, I don't know that would have happened. The next three regions of potential exploration are settings increasingly removed from civilization, places elsewhere and far away, distant and remote to our common understanding and the comfort of what we know, especially when we go alone, and especially when we go alone where there are no roads, trails, paths, or opportunity of help, or the connection, security, and comfort we've left behind are now truly out of reach. At the near edge of this vast and nearly universal wild, there's a crossing over point in borderland which I call the deep water wild. The edge of deep water. My mind is thinking about something else, and I'm doing this. I'm thinking I should have stopped a sentence back. Because what I'm describing here is the edge, going to the edge, leaving this behind. And you can't do it in a forest. You can't do it at the seaside. You know, people keep telling me go to the beach when it's hot. It doesn't work. Deep ocean, maybe, alone, out in a sailing ship, maybe in the deep ocean. But maybe the ship alone, the boat alone would ruin the effect. It's really got to be a desert. Sorry if you don't live near a desert and you were curious about this. Yeah, and that's when you begin to leave all of this. And the reason it has to be a desert is that you got to get away from the life. I'm not talking about just humans. I mean life in general. All of these plants and all this stuff, and the crickets and the birds and the crows and stuff like that, that spoils the view of what I call the great indifference. You can't see it because all this life disguises the emptiness. It's when you go in deep into a desert, especially a really barren desert. A moonscape is best of all. In the book, I described the place called the Badlands, or I call it actually the Sandman's Bed. Look at that. That's where it is. When you get out to a place like this, there ain't much of this. And what you're going to see is either what I think is the reality, which is the nothing, or you're going to make something up. And I can't tell you necessarily that what you make up isn't true, but I'll bet you, if I query you, you're going to rely on gut feeling, just a sense, some sort of a metaphysical support for what you're thinking. And I can't necessarily say that I don't do the same, but my proposition isn't that there's something out there, it's that there's nothing out there, that the universe appears to be empty. So I don't know how to demonstrate that other than to suggest you go see it for yourself. And there's a chapter in here about how to do that. It's called the anxiety hike. The anxiety hike is indeed a roadmap. Exactly that, a roadmap of how to get out here and see that thing. Although I deliberately made it hard to follow. And I deliberately warn you that you may not come back because it's a dangerous place to go. So let's talk about the edge of deep water, which is the dropping off point. So there's civilization. You reach the desert, Siberia, the ghost town, and you can head out from Siberia, about a mile out from Siberia, climbing up this gentle ridge. There's a point that I call the edge of deep water, beyond which you drop down out of range. That's where all cell reception drops off. That's where all sight or sound of civilization drops off. That's where the landscape gets really rugged, like that. This is from 30 miles up. And that's where the fun begins. At the near edge of this vast and nearly universal wild, there is a crossing over point and borderland which I call the edge of deep water. It's a high point between civilization and the deeper wilds, a place where we can at once see, hear, and otherwise perceive both the last vestige of our home and community in the near distance behind us, as well as the empty lands of wildness dead ahead and down below. So as you stand up on that edge, you can look behind you, and you can see Siberia in the railroad, and the edge of the ghost town, and Route 66. And you look forward, and it's emptiness. In fact, there's the little high point up there, and I've already erected a little cairn of rocks up there, and I plan to put something up there to mark the spot. So if anybody ever tries to go there, you'll know that that's the very spot that I'm referring to in the book right here. But I won't tell you exactly where it is. But if you read the book, you can figure it out. This edge of deep water is someplace we can indeed visit. And if we're lucky, and if we go alone, that's key, then just maybe we'll catch a glimpse there of the terrible thing I call the great indifference, which is defined further in this book. So from the edge of deep water, if you look out ahead of you, if you're lucky, if your mind is in that right place, you might see the great indifference. Even now, I can not always see it from there. Usually I come to that spot as I'm running away from the desert, sometimes literally running from the desert. I usually come back, my current adventures, I circle back and come back through the edge of deep water on the return route. And usually I'm in a slight panic pace because it's scary as crap out here. And I'm eager to get back. And sometimes the heat is there, and the thing I call the summer desert killers, whoops, is hot on my tail. But you can see it there. You might be able to see it there. I recommend going no further than this edge if you are timid or scared or not willing to risk or to lose or to die seemingly too soon. This is my very real and sincere warning to you. I'm not trying to seem dramatic or to simply entertain you with dangerous sounding cautions. Death, and something possibly much worse, can really find you when you perceive the great indifference. Don't go alone to the edge of deep water if you don't really want to know. And if you do go, then go alone. And don't try to follow me. You'll find nothing out there if you do. Well, you can follow my recommendation, but I deliberately wrote the anxiety hike chapter to lead you astray. And that's the dangerous part. No kidding, this desert will kill you. It does kill people. Yeah, it's killed. I've been out there hiking in the same weekend that people have died in the area around trying to explore. So watch out. Yeah. And you will find nothing if you follow me. If you manage to find to the way to that high point, that rock, that cairn of rocks that I left there, and there's something I put in there, and find that something I put in there, and then you look out at the desert, I guarantee you won't see the great indifference. I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't leave anything there. I should probably disassemble that cairn. Why am I doing that? Why am I removing that opportunity for you through the simple fact of giving a landmark that you might visit and say, hey, this is this place. Much better to let you have that opportunity to see that, anybody that happens to go there. But you won't see it. Yep, any hint of me. It won't be if you follow the route in the anxiety hike chapter. If you follow the route and you know you're on the route, you ain't gonna see nothing. It's just gonna be empty desert. Social isolation, dead environment, zest of life gone. Yeah, social isolation, negative isolation, right? Away from society. Yeah, that's kind of what it is. Next, so that was the second layer, right? First level was social civilization. The second level was the edge between civilization and the thing that's outside of it. The edge is the edge of deep water. Next, and beyond the edge of deep water, comes the deep water wilderness itself. So the deep water wilderness is this. All of this on the cover of the book is the deep water wilderness. That's the name that I gave. It's not something you'll find in any almanac or book. Almanac. It's what I call this. And I deliberately call it deep water. It's an irony, of course, that it's one of the driest places in North America. But it's an apt description. Go there and see, and you'll this is deep. This is the deep end of the pool. Next, and beyond the edge of deep water, comes the deep water wilderness itself. This is where most of the remaining characters and places in this book are found. They are landmarks, as I said, and though they are indeed real, it doesn't really matter if you find them. In fact, you're better off discovering such things in a desert, quotation marks, of your own seeking. Go somewhere else. Find something else. Take your own scary risks. Don't seek the places and things which I have found and have related here. Don't look for the great indifference just where I found it, as it'll be hard to see with the echo of my past passage blinding your view and confounding your footsteps. And if you do go where I once went, and then successfully locate any of my landmarks, such as the Watcher, or the Miner, or Campo Number 1, or the Home of Faith, or even Mount Wildness itself, those are some of the characters I describe in this chapter, then I'll bet you'll stand there and say to yourself, why the hell did I come here? And what was Kurt talking about? Just a second. This is nothing. And so it'll be. Nothing to you. That's because even if you went to my places all by yourself, you didn't truly go alone. So I'm describing now what I just said before, which is civilization, the edge of deep water, and then dropping down over that ledge. Be very careful going down into that first ledge there. It's a real ankle twister. You break an ankle or sprain an ankle really bad if you're not careful. But once you're down in there, you've got to disconnect. You got to be disconnected. You can't be following my path. You won't see anything. It'll just be desert. Well, what the hell is all this? You got to be lost. I've had an experience of what I'd call class hell. A void of black, only me, alone, no matter, no light. We are only okay. Yeah, it's interesting. To go alone, you got to make your own landmarks and go without any instructions on the way. Yeah, I agree, Spoozy. So that was the third. Civilization, the edge of deep water, the deep water wilderness itself. And I don't go too much into what is in that deep water wilderness right now, which is the setting. It is the place where the whole damn book takes place. So I'll cover that in the rest of the book. But there's one more level. And if you followed me as long as back in Japan, that was the first level that I discovered, the first level I spied, and I talked about it. More about that in a second. I talked about it in Japan. I gave it a different name. The last place on my indistinct map of regions is the great indifference itself, which is both beyond and within the deep water wilderness. It's everywhere, in fact. What is it, sweetie? You want to come sit? Hold on, the dog wants to sit on my lap. Just a second. You want to come sit with me? Come here, buddy. You're all tangled up. Just a second. Come here. Oh, come on. Come here, Ollie. Come here. Come here. Oh, boy. There we go. This is Ollie. We might be getting Ollie a buddy soon. In fact, we're probably going to go looking at animal shelters today. We're trying to find some good some good kill shelters, because here in Irvine and in much of this area, the animal shelters are all no-kill shelters. So those dogs are already safe. So we want to get our next dog from a place that they don't have such good fortune. So we might be doing that today. Yeah. Oh, Aaron says hi. Can you say hi? So I better wrap it up soon. I think he wants to go for his walkie. You going back down? You going back down? Okay. I'll take you out in just a second. Okay. I talked about that. Oh yeah, last place. And then we'll wrap up with this. The last place on my indistinct map of regions is the great indifference itself. I'm sorry if I already read this. Which is both beyond and within the deep water wilderness. It's everywhere, in fact. Only we can see it better the further we get out there in the desert. It's there in the mountains too, and in the sea, and where you work, and where you live. Though you can't very well perceive such empty in these places due to the clutter of life and the artifacts of living. To perceive the great indifference clearly, you'll need a desert, and you'll need to go far, far beyond your own edge of deep water. Parentheses. Give one last look back before you proceed, going down and into your own deep water, and then beyond. Do you see it out there? If so, then what? Then now what? Read on to learn how I answered this particular question in my own life, which is the substance and subject of my book and story. But first, let's meet the cast of Going Alone. So that's the end of the introduction to this chapter. And then after that follows an item-by-item list of all the characters in the book, beginning with the Siberia ghost town, the BNSF and railroad, Route 66, and it just goes on and on. It's a fairly sizable chapter. But you can see that what I've done there is set the stage, the 4 levels. Again, civilization, the edge of deep water, that boundary between civilization and what is beyond. The deep water wilderness itself. And did you catch what that last one was? The great indifference. The great indifference isn't a place. It's a perception. It's a realization and a recognition that the universe appears to be devoid of any overt oversight or intelligence, that we seem to be alone. I'm sure that our sensory devices will one day pick up life elsewhere in the universe. But as for any god or gods out there, looking after things, no sign of that whatsoever. That's what the landscape and aspect and sight, I almost wanted to say revelation. It is kind of a revelation, a personal revelation of a place like the deep water wilderness can do. And then I mentioned that I had talked about this in Japan. In Japan, I called this thing the Mount Wildness. And the problem was that Japan was so rich with fecundity that in the wilderness there are just, mountains and full of trees and practically temperate rainforest with monkeys and insects and just everything everywhere, water and all this stuff. It was just so full of life that I could get into the wilderness, but I couldn't see past it to the emptiness beyond. But I kind of sensed it there, and I called that thing the great indifference. I called it the Mount Wildness. Mount Wildness there was a hypothetical place that was always a little further than I was willing to go into the wilderness of Japan. And I could hear out there this thing that I called the howling. Of course, I know this is all make-believe. None of this is real. And the howling represented the true deep wild. And there was a woodsman's cabin on the near slope of Mount Wildness, which were the ruins of civilization's greatest endeavor into that wild. And I could reach the near side of Mount Wildness where I could hear the howling on the far side of the mountain. And I always imagined that if I ever went to the far side, the dark side of the mountain, not like Star Wars, that might be someplace that I couldn't return. Or if I did, I would never return the same. And then whatever I would have to say, whatever I could describe as what I discovered on the far side, no one would relate to. Now I think I've been there. And that has been through the experience of going in America, coming back to America and going here. And there is actually a place that is Mount Wildness, an actual place that I've described. It's right under the sticker, right there. If you ever find the satellite map, you can actually see Mount Wildness below the sticker. I deliberately put the sticker there to cover it up. And then someday I'll make it there. Although it's going to be hard. Each year I keep saying, this is the year I'm going to do it. This is the year. I know I can make it there and back now. I know that, it can't get me anymore for all the aforementioned reasons. Well, I'm going to drop off there and take my dog for finish his walk. I see a few comments coming by. Let's see if there's any questions to answer. And thank you for your comments and your observation. Social isolation, dead environment, zest of life gone. I think all of that's true, including the zest of life part. When you first wrote that, I wasn't so sure about the zest of life. But yeah, you're right. It kind of takes the wind out of your sails when you see what's not out there. But and yeah, almost every single time I go out there, I go, why the hell did I come out here? Why do I want to see this, right? Wouldn't it be better to come back and make something up or buy into something that others have made up and join some fraternal organization of fellowship and brotherhood, and we can all tell one another stories and say, I'll see you in forever? Yeah, that would be a lot nicer. But it's funny, when I get back, it's not the case. I really enjoy my life more for the fact and the facing of the reality that I perceive, even if I'm wrong. Because it is the reality that I perceive and that my reason has not been able to tell me otherwise. Keep meaning to pick up the book on Amazon, Space Goat says. Oh, well, thank you very much. I do appreciate the support on Amazon. If you like, I'm happy to send you a copy as well. You can send me an email. Anybody can send me an email at softypapa@goingalone.org, and I'll gladly send you a free copy. I'm not able to send any more rocks anymore because I'm plumb out of rocks, and my rock grinder, my rock thinger broke. So I just send you the book with a signature on it and a few stickers. Yeah, I have stickers. Let's see, and then we have Cyanman says, I had the experience of what I'd call hell. A void of black, only me alone, no matter, no light. We are being figurative, of course. Oh, that's the part I missed before about the figurative, of course. I love talking in figurative sense. I love descriptions like that. Go for it, man. I mean, I do the same thing. I use all those terms. The problem is people take me seriously. They think that, Mount Wilderness is a real place. And, even though it is a real place. Or that, and that there really is a howling. And what is it? Kurt, you're talking all this stuff, right? So that's what I mean. That's what I'm doing with what you're doing there. I love it. I love it. Spoozy says, to go alone, you got to make your own landmarks and go without any instructions on the way. Absolutely, you got it right on the nose, and be willing to take the risk that you might not find your way back. And when you get back, Ron, you might tell people about what you found, and they're going to look at you like you're mad. That's why I don't discredit so many of the things I hear sometimes, because I just think maybe they're telling me what they saw out there in the wild that I just can't get because my paradigm is so different. And Aaron says, hi Ollie, hi Ollie. Sayani Man says, I assume that's what you're on about, realizing how dead matter is, with no emergent properties of consciousness. Absolutely dull, lifeless, horrific, makes me appreciate being conscious beings. Bingo. Let me read again. That your statement there summed it up perfectly, Sayaniman. I assume that's what you're on about. This is, of course, carrying on from his or her earlier statement about, I had the experience of what I call the black, only me, alone, no matter, no light. And then he says, I assume that's what you're on about, realizing how dead matter is, with no emergent property of consciousness. Dull, lifeless, horrific, makes me appreciate conscious beings. Life. Bingo, absolutely. It's, who was that author that talked about that, the emptiness out there? What was his name? I can't remember his name. Life. It's an author. I can't remember his name. He would talk about that in his writing. He was a science fiction author, slightly horror author. Pick up a rock. There's nothing in there, at least so far as I can tell. Maybe someday someone will find something. Maybe there is a soul or a god or a spirit in a rock. I don't think so. Likewise, the landscape. Get out in a deep desert and it's just full of rocks, just full of nothing. Sky full of nothing. Night stars full of nothing. It's just nothing all around. And that is the thing that awakens the perception of the great indifference and the realization, gulp, there's no God. We're alone. And that can lead you to jump off a cliff on one hand, or it can lead you to say, well, to hell with it. I'm going to screw up the courage, and I'm going to figure out a system of values. I'm going to go back. I'm going to create a family for myself and make friends. I'm still working on that part. and I'm going to live a good life, the good life. That's one response as well, right? You can, nihilism can send you off a cliff, or it can cause you to live well in spite of the fact. And sorry if I'm interrupting you, by the way. No problem, please. I love it. Sometimes I move on just to keep the flow of the reading going on, but I'm loving what you're writing here, Sayaniman. It's because our consciousness is emergent, not actually physical, not really there, but exists through time, like music. Gosh, wow, I love it. Yes, exactly. I believe it as well. It's like the property of wet, right? Yeah, H2O, a molecule of H2O isn't wet, but you put enough of them together and the emergent quality of wetness appears, right? It's not anything magical, it's just there. Likewise, our consciousness. I'm in complete agreement with you. Aaron says, just when you thought you'd found nowhere in Japan, you'd find a Gizu statue. Jizu, oh, you meant Jizu with a J. A Jizu statue, or maybe it's spelled with a G, or maybe I've been doing it wrong. Statue of abandoned tea farm. Okay, let me say that again. Just when you thought you'd found nowhere in Japan, you'd find a Jizu statue or abandoned tea farm. Yes, that's exactly right. Constant. Remember I said before, if you came out to the deep water wilderness, if you followed the roadmap that I left in here at the top of the hill, just at the place where I told you, if you looked over the edge, you could see the great difference, and then there's a pile of rocks there and something Kurt left behind, it's going to wipe it all clean. Likewise, when I was in Japan and I'd be in the middle of nowhere. Remember that one video, the octopus tree? And that, there I am at this octopus tree over a waterfall, and I'm looking over the edge, and I turn around and there's this Japanese shrine enveloped by the tree sitting there, hundreds of years old, that everybody had forgotten, that just removes the whole vision, the whole visage, the full landscape of the great India. Just impossible to see. That happened all the time in Japan. No wonder I couldn't see it. No wonder the great indifference was something I sensed. I called it Mount Wildness, but I could never find. It took coming back to America. It took being separated from my family for 14 months. And the adventures that I had going alone into the desert, as difficult and as challenging as that time was, to slap me around and make me realize, oh my gosh, it's true. It's empty. There's nothing out there. What the hell am I going to do? And I decided, instead of jumping off the cliff, to write The Good Life, to write Going Alone, and now to write The Good Life, and to develop the principles and objectives of the good life. The Ghost of Sabasaz says, join us, Kurt. Join us on the dark side. I'm coming. Yeah, keep. I'm gonna say keep a light on for me. Keep it off. Do you go on to the dark side? Did you go on to the dark side? No, I haven't been there yet. I think once I finally make it to the mountain behind this sticker, I'll have been there and back. It's my last great physical adventure that I want to endeavor. And then Sayaniam says, you're the only person I've known to talk about this, by the way. Yeah, it's pretty rare to find people to chat about this stuff. Most people don't want to talk about this stuff, or they have just no interest in this. Oh, my doggy's making little noises. He wants to go for a walk, so I'm going to wrap up. It's not something that people like to talk about, but they're out there. A lot of people, when they encounter this stuff, they wind up pretty down. This has the effect of driving people a little mad, I think. But look, as you probably know the term nihilism. It has a very bad rap. I'm trying to bring it back, make nihilism great again. Nihilism, nihilism, I don't know how to say it. And Sayaniam and anybody out there, you're welcome to join me over at my website. I mean, I'm trying to create a place where people that share this perspective can chat and not be so alone in going alone. Goingalone.org. Goingalone.org. You can subscribe to the website. There's a forum. I post in the forum off and on, but I post on the blog every single day. The Ghost of Sabotage, just 2 comments left. We are all full of atoms that is made up of mostly nothingness. Yes, that's why principle number in the good life, principle number 6 is called the atomic principle. And the atomic principle is my reminder of that very fact. We are atoms made up of mostly nothingness. It's a humbling and sobering perspective. Last comment, that was an awesome video. I think you're referring to the octopus tree video. Yeah, that was an awesome experience. Discovering that up there, and that giant, remember the giant bullfrog, the giant, what is the bufo, whatever the hell, excuse me, there's a name for that particular toad. It was a land toad that was up there by that tree. If I was the one that was want to spirituality and stuff like that, I would have totally gone, oh my gosh, this giant ancient tree has enveloped a shrine that was for the waterfall god, and there's a giant toad that's guarding it, oh my gosh. Oh, Kami-sama, I'm not worthy. Oh, thank goodness I'm not want to go down that route. Because what a boring perspective, just to wrap it all up in superstition and call it a mystery and have it and leave it at that. I'd much rather continue scratching my head and say, I just don't know what the hell it is, but I'm going to keep on working on the problem. And with that, I'm going to work on the challenge now of taking my little doggy for a walk. I see one says, Sayaniman says, happy to join if you have a forum there. Have a good day, Kurt. I do have a forum there. So just go ahead and subscribe, join in the forum. I post blog posts every day, and then forum comments here and there. And you can comments and things as well. I'd be delighted to see you there. Anybody else as well. And just before I go, just one more point. If you would like a free copy of Going Alone, no need to buy it on Amazon. Just send me an email, softypapa@goingalone.org. Softypapa is SOFTYPAPA. And I'll be happy to send you a copy, and it'd be my sincere pleasure anywhere in the world. Don't worry about it. So with that, I'm gonna sign off. Wish you all the best day, and then after that, we're gonna have a good family day. We're going to do some shopping in the morning, and then we're gonna go get downtown LA and get ramen. Emily found with her boyfriend. She and her boyfriend were in LA about 2 weeks ago, and they found a great vegan ramen place in Little Tokyo. We're going to go to that, and then we're going to go look for doggies if we can find us a nice kill shelter to rescue a puppy dog from, to give a little company to our guy here. Thank you very much for joining me. How much time is this? 52 minutes. Good. So I kept it under an hour. I wish you all the best. Remember, be safe, but not too safe. Make it a great day, and see you next month.